That's why I feel so depressed, or I didn't do more for Renard. I could have done more.
What do you think maybe you could have done?
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nil Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim Kadosh Baruch Hu. Seidchem Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
This is the story of my family in the Holocaust, especially one member of my family, my Aunt Renate. I didn't even know her name, but I knew that my dad's sister was responsible for saving his life by getting him out of Germany before things got bad. In 1985, I made my first trip to Europe, visiting Germany, and I began a journey that is still going on, seeking information about my family. I found many answers, and Renate was an amazing woman. But as I found answers, they created many more questions. When I visited Germany in 1985 with my son Michael, who was then 9 years old, I saw my dad's former home. I saw the synagogue that was about to be restored. Now, this was 1985, many years after the war ended, but it still looked like a war zone. I learned about my grandfather, Samuel, my dad's father, who used to ride his bicycle around and was very well liked by the town. He was a rather poor man. I also met Klaus Reinhardt, who was in charge of the synagogue restoration. The photo at the bottom of the slide is Erwin Densler, the historian who helped me locate almost all of the amazing amount of information that we found about Renate. And I also, through the internet, met, besides Erwin, I met Alex Gobler, who is a software engineer and helped with the technical aspects of this project. I was still working with Klaus Reinhardt, who was in charge of the synagogue restoration, and he asked us to get some material together for an event at the synagogue. And that's how this project began.
What he said when he was here, that time they had no doctors, and today they have no doctor there. That time they had no traffic light, today is no traffic light in winter. I'm surprised. I know he has a car, if more people have a car.
People have cars, or maybe not that many like here.
Yeah. I know Schuster, Jakob Schuster, had a car. Made in France, I believe.
The photo on the left shows the synagogue before the renovations. Inside there were huge boulders, but you can see the rocks outside also. And the photo on the right shows the inside after the renovations. Upstairs was where the women sat for services. You can't see that in this photo, and that's where the rabbi lived also. The rabbi also worked with 4 other synagogues in the area because these communities were very small. There were only 8 Jewish families in Venkheim, actually only about 1,000 people total in the town.
Remember that?
Yeah.
We have slides of that.
Fine.
What is that?
That's the synagogue. That's the synagogue here. That's upstairs. The
Where?
women that were sitting there.
He's pointing to the top windows.
There. And here, the front, there were some rooms, and the Hebrew school up here. Well, and downstairs was
The
the
Hebrew school was here, and the women sat there. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dad.
down here was in Germany was the Lehrer,
Teacher.
teacher.
The rabbi?
He was not a rabbi. He was a teacher.
What was his name?
Susan, I don't know.
Okay.
I do not remember.
I just thought you might remember.
No.
Is this the synagogue too?
Yeah. Just a synagogue.
Just a second. And this, what is it?
That's where you go in the synagogue.
The entrance.
Sit down.
That's fine, I got it.
I'm not sure when the first picture was taken, but the other two were from 1995, and this one is also from 1995, and I believe it's on the PowerPoint anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, what's that?
This is the synagogue.
Mm-hmm. Inside.
Inside.
And you recognized some of the lamps. There's a little story here. The lamps, tell me about the lamps.
We haven't got it in there.
Oh,
The lamp was donated by us, by Samuel Grünebaum, Nummer 4,
number 4.
Full Grünebaum. And the other one was donated by, I believe, by Louis Grünebaum. It's a cousin.
Did he live there too?
Louis, die Miller was his daughter.
What was your mother's name?
So, yeah. Und she knew they were all from Kurdistan.
But she wasn't in New York.
No. No, that's right. No.
She died in 1932.
Right.
Mankind.
Yeah. Right, 1932 in America. She died. She was perfectly alright. She died having a heart attack. I wasn't home. I was in Karlstadt am Main. But my father pulled out the window. You know, here's the street, you know. Kappler, Schiebel. That's what the neighbors.
Oh.
I think you all know, right? Kappler.
Stiegel. That's the name we knew from the picture.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name?
Stiegel.
Schiebel.
That was the lady
Oh.
in the picture last.
SCH.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
Okay.
SCH. IBL.
Oh, it's a different name. Okay. Schiebel.
Because there was no doctor there. Mankind.
Well, did somebody come?
Probably yes.
You were about 15 then, right? You were
And I
15
wasn't
years
then.
old? Maybe you were
I think older.
older because you were 22 in 37. So you,
I was in
you
Karlstadt.
were 17.
I was in Karlstadt, and they called the same day. I mean, Night time, the next day, the same day. She died at night. Same day they called me up in Galveston. He told me I should go out the door. It's important telephone. So I did. And I came in again, they told me.
They told you to go outside while they talked on the telephone, or to...
Here, when I'm sitting here, we just had breakfast. We're sitting here, here's the telephone, just go outside the door.
They wanted you to go outside while they talked on the telephone? Or they wanted you to go to the telephone?
They didn't want to do the telephone.
It's okay.
But a neighbor, well, it's not a neighbor, one house away, Sophie Hubert called. She was a daughter of Hubert, I don't know his first name. And she called. Then they told me, and I came back.
Did you go back to Benkheim?
Oh, to the funeral,
Yeah.
sure.
It must have been hard. You were so young to be losing your mother.
So what's hard? See, when they buried somebody, the cemetery was all the way up the hill, a bad street, and underneath by there, the stones were laying there, and holes in Wald. Wald is
Woods.
yeah.
Forest.
So
There is a Jewish cemetery in Benkheim in the woods. The Nazis never found it, so it was left intact. In fact, the Jews used to hide things there when the Nazis began their terror. My grandmother, my dad's mother, Sarah Grunebaum, died before the war. She died in 1932, and this is her grave in the cemetery in Benkheim.
mother is buried
Okay.
on a Jewish cemetery, goes from Benkheim up the hill.
I'm going to ask
There's
Klaus
woods.
to take some pictures for us of that and to look up the records.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. And you also mentioned something about the cemetery in Benkheim. It was up the hill.
Yeah. When they took my mother, what was it? My mother. That, the casket. Yes. For the farmer, 2 horses, and in back was the casket. on the wagon. And she was buried there, in Wenkheim. The cemetery is probably still there. That's in the wald.
Woods. I've been to the cemetery. It is still there.
Oh, you did?
I saw your mother's grave. We have pictures of it.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
I put a stone on her grave. And one from you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You want to explain to Shalonda what we do with the little stones, little pebbles?
Jewish religion. I don't know if they changed their religion or not. But that time, when Susan was in the cemetery, when I was in the cemetery, probably the last time in Germany, we picked up a stone from the floor and put it on the grave. That maybe, I think they got to see the day.
What is it for, though? Why do you do it?
You want to know something? I don't know.
Okay.
I do not know.
To show that you were there, it's kind of like a kiss.
Hmm?
It's like a kiss.
Maybe. Could be, you're right, like something. Like a prayer maybe, or the...
Mm-hmm.
This is my father, Manfred Greenbaum, born Grunebaum, and he changed his name so people could pronounce it when he became a citizen in the United States. Handsome dude, isn't he? He is now 92 years old, and we do not live that far apart, about 20 minutes apart. I would like to point out that slides related to him are green. We have color-coded slides. I'll point out the colors as we go. My dad is generally very well liked, and he's a very warm and helpful person to everybody. However, he didn't help me very much with my research in the beginning, although as we kept working on it, he remembered more and more. When he lived in New York, he worked as a butcher, actually a smoker of hot dogs. And in Germany, he basically only went to elementary school, which is not uncommon there. And he worked in business when he was there, but he left Germany at age 22. This is my grandfather, Samuel, my dad's father, also Renate's father. Notice his page is gray. He had a few cattle. He dealt in second-hand clothing, and he was quite poor. He used to take the woolen threads out of rags and sell the woolen threads because they were worth more. He dealt in second-hand clothing and rags, and apparently he wanted to leave Germany in 1935, but he was too poor to have the funds for the voyage.
What do you remember about your father, Samuel?
Yeah. On weekends, he had a bike. I washed it when he stopped using it. And he went to the other, a Dorf, what's a Dorf?
Town.
Country?
Small town, village.
Yeah. And sold some things like what you wear.
Clothing?
Yeah. No. But he collected old rags, iron, and all those things. And once in a while, he had a big truck, auto, not no, what do you call it, Susan? They were common. It has a motor and 4 wheels.
Water?
Huh?
It has water?
No motor.
Oh, a motor and 4
Motor,
wheels?
yeah.
A car?
A car. Car?
More than a car, where all
Truck?
he was loading it up.
A truck?
Yeah,
A trailer?
yeah. And rode it to the next city. The next
How did he
city.
bring it to the next city? He drove it?
No, he had to pay somebody.
Oh.
Okay.
Von Groß-Winterfeld. Und er drove it to Würzburg. And there was somebody there who bought it. And
What was he selling?
what?
Who bought what? What was he selling?
Lumpen,
Rags?
eggs, and that Eisen. What's Eisen?
I don't know.
This is Eisen.
Metal?
Yeah. So, he made just living like that. What else?
What did you do with him? Did you go places with him sometimes? Maybe when you were a child?
I think I did a few times. Yes, I did. Yeah. He took a sandwich for now. And does
Where did you go with him?
he only went the next counties.
So it was only when he was working that you went with him? Did you ever go just to have fun?
Only when he was working. I think he went every day. He went to breweries, and they get new machines, and they sold their old ones, you know. So,
Did you go to synagogue with him?
oh yeah, synagogue, yeah. I had my seat in the synagogue next day. So, ask me.
Did Renate go to synagogue and your mother?
Zerlina was my dad's aunt, his mother's sister. She was from a nearby town, Krulsheim, but she moved in with Samuel and Renate after Kristallnacht. She wrote a few letters to my dad about what was going on with Renate that I'll talk about later. Renate was born in Venkheim, December 8th, 1912, and this is her story, and she is my hero. She took care of Samuel and my dad after their mom died. She never married, and she got my dad the papers to get out of Germany in 1937, saving his life. To do that, she needed to find a sponsor to put up $100,000, which was the requirement of the United States government to let my dad enter the country in case he could not find employment, which of course he did. It was too late to get herself out. I took this photo in 1985 of my dad's former home in Venkheim. He left as a teen at about age 15 to work in another town, which was not unusual. And therefore, when he was 17 and his mom died, they had to call him back into town. So it was Samuel and Zerlina and Renate that lived in the house. In the photo is the lady that bought the house from my dad, the lady that we went there with, and my son. When my dad owned the home, there was no indoor plumbing, although they had a beautiful wooden staircase, and I really enjoyed seeing it.
All the kids knew each other, so I lived on that side. On the right side was about 2-3 houses further down, and we played. And I felt, oh yeah, all kids my age that time. I was very young. And one, if I go to this here, the one board, okay, you got it, one board of the sewer, where the sewer goes in, broke. And I was holding myself with one hand on here.
Mm-hmm. Because he fell in. He told me this earlier.
Yeah, because so the other kids saw that and ran there and got me out.
Mm.
This was a thing full with water, dirt. They had no bathtubs there, but they had a little container, that soap.
Mm-hmm. He said they had no bathtub, so he had to wash up with soap in a container.
At the sewer?
Oh.
People would wash near the sewer there?
People were washed near the sewer.
Why are you talking about bathtubs when you were talking about the sewer?
I was 30.
Oh, okay.
After being in the sewer.
I don't remember that. I don't remember because I was a kid that I fell in. But my mother told me that all the time.
So you don't know how old you were, but it was.
I don't remember anything about
So
that.
you were pretty young. Or you would.
But I fell in and sold myself.
This is my dad at age 22, before he left Germany. After he came to the United States, he met my mom, married her. She was another Holocaust survivor. They married in 1942. I was born in 1943.
Are you what?
How did you come over from Germany?
Oh, I came in the ship Normandy. Ever heard of the Normandy? It catch fire here once. Und da macht einen aircraft carrier. You know, my traveling agent in Würzburg make all the arrangement. So I came from Wenkheim zu Hochhausen, where the train is, und von Hochhausen we went to whatever it is, we went to France. They are our friends. The reason we came to Le Havre was I believe was very close where the Normandy was in the water. And
Yeah, Le Havre is a port. That's
Yeah.
where the boat was.
And we went on the boat, about 2 grown-ups and me, on a Friday afternoon. But the ship, most ships, they leave on a Saturday, so did the Normandy left on a Saturday. But the reason, Jewish religion said you should not should not drive or ride on a Saturday. So we lived on the ship already. Came there Friday, stood overnight in France, and the ship left Saturday, but we were living on the ship already. See? So was no sin. And from there we went to New York City.
Was there a lot of people on the ship? Was there a lot of people on the ship?
I don't know.
Was it empty?
Or was it
I
crowded?
don't know, Susan, no more. I don't think there were many people there, because most people take the airplane. So
And you went by ship because of the cost of the airplane? Is that why you went by ship? The airplane cost too much?
this was the recommendation from the traveling agent. But I tell you one thing, we had a meeting a couple of months ago, and we're talking, you know. So he came, this is his father-in-law, from when we had the basement.
You mean your Holocaust survivors support group?
Yeah, basement. When he said, took him 21.5 days to come over here. So I told him, I made it in 4.5. Same distance. Because I came with a bigger and faster ship. Normandy was on the Queen Mary was the fastest ship that time. After I don't know when, after a couple of years that time, 1937 I believe I came home. That time the Normandy caught fire in New York. That was making an aircraft carrier out of the ship.
When you got to New York, what happened? When the ship got to New York?
My uncle was there,
Uncle Sam?
Onkel Sam, and Bella Kelberman, where I stood.
Kelberman?
Calverman. So
And
that's
who was Kelverman?
he married Mela.
In 1944, my dad became a citizen in New York City and changed his name from Grunebaum to Greenbaum. And these are his naturalization papers. This is actually a slide that Klaus Reinhardt uses in his PowerPoint in German to explain what happened to the Jews in general in Wenkheim. And the photo shows two houses. One is a business. The house on the left was owned by Manfred Bravman. Brav means good, so it's like Manfred Goodman. He emigrated to Israel but died in the 1990s. All of the Jews had to stay in that house after Kristallnacht. They were locked in every night, about 20 of them. That was all that remained of the Jews of Wenkheim at that time. They were locked in at night, were allowed to go to work in the daytime, and actually hid valuables in the cemetery, which was never found by the Nazis and never destroyed. Now let me tell you about what Kristallnacht was. In November 1938, I believe it was November 10th, all over Germany, the Nazis destroyed Jewish businesses and synagogues. They burned some of them. They broke the glass on some of them. And Kristallnacht means broken glass, the night of the broken glass. And this was done all over Germany, and at that point there was no doubt in anybody's mind that the Jews were being persecuted and things were really bad. After Kristallnacht was when the Jews of Wenkheim had to leave their own homes. Their homes were locked up, and they had to move into Manfred Bravman's home. Now remember, my dad had gotten out before Kristallnacht. He got out in 1937. But from 1938 until October of 1940, the Jews in Wenkheim continued to live in the Manfred Bravman house unless they were able to get out of Germany. It was much more difficult after Kristallnacht to leave. Then on October 22nd, 1940, there was another big roundup. There was a knock knock on the door, and all over 2 states of Germany, the Nazis came to get the Jews. All of the Jews in the states of Baden and Pfalz in southern Germany were given 1 hour to pack a small suitcase, 1 day's worth of food, 1 day's worth of clothing, and 100 marks. And that was not very much money even then. And to go to the center of town to be deported. They had no idea what was happening, and this happened to over 6,500 Jews on that same day. They were taken to southern France, Vichy France, which was unoccupied, but the French were not expecting them. A man from Vankheim told me a story about how they lived next door to my dad's family. Samuel, my grandfather, and offered him his winter coat thinking he wouldn't need it because they were going south, and the man wouldn't take it, which was a good thing because it was cold in southern France, just like it can get cold in Florida. And the man was a baker and gave him a loaf of bread. That man's daughter is the woman that bought my dad's house eventually. When the Jews arrived in southern France, they were put into a camp that had been used as a prison for Spaniards. It was not a concentration camp, but it was a camp. There actually had been some other Jews that had moved to southern France in 1936, 1937, and they were also living in Camp Gurs. And that's a photo of it there. Conditions were very poor. There wasn't enough food. There were all kinds of illnesses, but they didn't kill the Jews. They allowed them to have religious services. There was a rabbi there. They had funerals, and they even had graves for them. In fact, Samuel is buried in Gurs. We'll get to that in a minute.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Congregation responds. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. You continue. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Congregation responds. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti, unerom ema Shemo Yachedah.
This is a very well-known photo of Gurs, just showing the wet conditions and the mud. It was always wet and muddy there. I visited Gurs in 1999. They have a memorial the last Sunday in April of every year, and I wanted to go there to say Kaddish for my grandfather. That's a special prayer we say when people die, after people die. And I wanted to see his grave. On the left is the sign showing how many people had been interned there. And on the right, that is not a lake, that is the road. As I said, it was always wet and muddy there. Erwin Denzler, the German historian, who is not Jewish, helped me look for information on my relatives, Samuel, Zerlina, and Renate, by writing to the organization that is in charge of maintaining the Gurs
camp and its information. The buildings are all gone. It's only grass now. But the organization did find us information only on Samuel and that he had died. Now, Samuel was not killed. He died of natural causes because of the conditions at the camp. My dad, Manfred, had received a letter from Zerlina from Gers. Yes, they could write letters. They could even go into town for supplies if they had money to do that. And Zerlina said that Samuel was very tired and weak, and he died. We found his death certificate from Gers. He died January 12th, 1942, and we highlighted his name on the death certificate that contained several other names of people that died the same day. Samuel was 59 years old when he died. The Gers organization at the time could not find any information on Renate or Zerlina, so we had to work very hard to find that. The photo of the grave was taken by a member of the German government who attended one of the Gers memorials and took the photo for me. We had received another letter from Zerlina stating that Renate had gone to work for farmers, for peasants. Unfortunately, my dad did not save these letters. Alex Gobler, our techie person, found the map that shows the borders for both 1937 and 1942, and Venkheim is in the center of this map. The green line, remember we're color-coded, shows my dad's path going west from Venkheim through Le Havre, France, to the United States. And the other three lines from Venkheim show the path going to Gers in the lower left part of the map. That's where the other three people went. The legend for the map explains the borders for 1937 and 42, as well as showing the occupied territory, and lists the people with their colors. So far we have only done Samuel in gray and my dad Manfred in green. We will talk about the others very soon. It was not very easy to find information about Renate. The first information that we got was incorrect. The book on the left in German is a book about the Jews of Venkheim, and it said that Renate died on April 1st of 1942 in Auschwitz. It didn't say that she died then. It said that she was declared to have died then. The German words are vertot erklärt. Erwin knew that this had to be incorrect because at that time, April 1st of 1942, people were not yet being deported to Auschwitz.
The paper on the right from the German government said that she was declared to have died in Gurs. We later found out that was also incorrect, and Irwin wrote to the people in charge when we found out the correct information, but they have refused to make any changes in the records. Because of the fact that we could not have correct information, both Irwin and I started our research to find out what happened to Renate. This is the reason for our work. In the 1940s in New York City, there was a newspaper called the Aufbau that was published, and it is still being published today. It is basically a Jewish newspaper printed in German, so it's for German Jews, and yet it's printed in New York City. Irwin found out that the Aufbau had deportation lists in the 1940s, and with much trouble we were able to locate these lists, copies of these lists. The first request we had were for deportation lists from Gurs, but there were also some from another camp. This was another camp in France called Reef Salt. We got those lists also, and it was a good thing because we found Renate's name on the Reef Salt list, not on the Gurs list. We were amazed. In the 1940s, my dad did not see Renate's name on any of the lists. However, we were able to find it, and she was listed incorrectly as Polish. We had no idea how did she get to Reef Salt. We had no idea she was even there. So then we started a letter campaign writing to the Reef Salt archives to see if they had any information about her. French archives are by departments as well as national, so there are many places one needs to contact. And one has to be extremely specific with their questions to the French. At about the same time as finding the Aufbau copies, Irwin and I both, he in Germany for the French edition, and I here in Florida for the English edition, found this book by Serge Klarsfeld, a historian who has dedicated his life to helping people locate relatives in the Holocaust, he also being a child Holocaust survivor. The book is called Memorial to the Jews Deported from France, 1942 through 1944. This is the only memorial many will have. The book is larger than a telephone directory, and it has 80 convoys of approximately 1,000 people each that were deported from France east, mostly to Poland. In each convoy, people are listed alphabetically, and we found Renate in convoy 37. People are listed by last name, first name, date of birth, city of birth, which they did not have for Renate, and country, A being Allemand or Germany. Convoy 37 came from Riefsalt, not from Gurs. Actually, it came by way of Drancy, near Paris. The book, Memorial to the Jews Deported from France, is out of print, but Serge Klarsfeld was kind enough to send me a copy. He is now working on a new edition. The book has information about each convoy, and much of this information came from another book by Danuta Czech called The Auschwitz Chronicle, where she told what happened in Auschwitz every day. For Renate's Convoy 37, it arrived in Auschwitz on September 27th, 1942. On the way, out of the 1,004 people on the convoy, 175 men were released before arriving at Auschwitz to another camp. And when they arrived at Auschwitz, 40 men and 91 women were admitted to the camp to work. The remaining 698 deportees were killed in the gas chambers. This was common, that 70 to 80% of people arriving at Auschwitz were immediately gassed. When we found this book and this information, we did not know whether Renate was one of the people gassed or not. We found Zerlina's name on Convoy 17, the first convoy from Gurs. Her name was misspelled, but the spelling was close, because the French made these lists and they did not know how to spell the German names. But it had her date of birth, her city of birth. This is the only record we found for Zerlina, and therefore we assume that she probably was immediately gassed when she arrived, as she was in her late 50s and probably assumed to have been too old to work. Zerlina and also some other relatives of ours that were on the list were on Convoy 17, and it went from Gurs to Drancy, which was basically a transport camp near Paris, and from Drancy directly to Auschwitz. Again, Zerlina is remembered by us for writing letters to my dad, and she did live with Samuel and Renate for some years in Venkheim. She was my dad's aunt, his mother's sister. Convoy 17 left Gurs on August 6th, 1942, for Drancy. It arrived in Auschwitz on August 10th. There were 1,000 Jews on this convoy. It's an important change of events at this time, because It was the first time that the French cooperated with the Nazis and handed over Jews to be deported. It was a big change in the atmosphere at Gers. It was the first time that the French in the unoccupied zone helped the Nazis. These are two of the photos in Klarsfeld's book. The one on the left is the French and German checking identity cards of Jews in Paris, and the one on the right is a selection at the ramp in Auschwitz-Birkenau. The selection meant when people arrived, they were either selected to work or they were selected to go to the gas chamber. We continue to write to the organization that maintains Camp Gers, make sure that the graves are kept clean and the area is available for people to visit. And they have records there on people that had been interned there. But nobody could find information on Renate. We did know from a letter from Zerlina that Renate had worked for farmers. Finally, two events happened. The Red Cross found Renate's permission to work and that she was able to go and do farm work. The translation of that is in the box below. We found out that Renate had gone to work for a group of foreign workers called a Groupement de Travailleurs Étrangers. However, this was extremely unusual because it was basically limited to men. We still have no idea how Renate managed to get out of the camp to go to work. But again, she was an amazing woman. We wrote to 6 different addresses for this information. And finally, we located somebody that could help us. A German Jew by the name of Oscar Althausen, who had been in Gurs, was in charge of information about Gurs, and he gave us the name and address of Claude Lahari, the secretary of the Amical, the group that had this information about Gurs. Claude Lahari found Renate's file card, which you can see here. On the left is the copy we received because the original was a dark red and it was hard to make a copy. On the right, it's much clearer because Alex Gobler, our techie person, was able to clean it up for us. Claude Lahari, who is a historian and has written books about Gurs, was amazed that Renate, as a woman, was able to go to a Groupement de Travailleurs Étrangers, a work group of foreigners. He said she must have known somebody quite high up in the government, but we don't know who she could have known, and we don't believe she spoke French. She may have had some friends in the Lyon area because that is where she did end up. If you look at the card, you can see that she got permission to leave on the 27th of March of 1941, and on May 18th she did leave to go. The upper right of the card says GT Lyon, which we assume meant Groupement de Travailleurs Étrangers. Serge Klarsfeld, the other historian that we mentioned, was also very surprised that Renate got to go to what is abbreviated as a GTE as a woman. When I asked about this, he said, I told him it was my aunt, and he said, "You mean your uncle?" And I said, "No, I mean my aunt." Here we have the document in French giving Renate permission to go to work for farmers, that medically she was capable of doing the work. We do know that there were some Jews from her hometown of Venkheim that had moved to the Lyon area. In fact, they also moved to our neighborhood in New York City later. But by the time I realized that they might have information, the person that would have it had already passed away. We learned much later, actually from Renate's papers at Auschwitz that her last residence was a town called Saint-Germain-sur-l'Arbre, which is about 10 minutes away from Lyon. We assume that that's where she worked for farmers for approximately 16 months, and that she may have worked in the winery business because there were grapes and wine there. She may have worked with a family. We know that she could sew quite well. We believe that she may have lived with a family. However, we could not find any information about the fact that she was there aside from the paperwork that was her last residence and the paperwork that she went from Gers to the Lyon area. None of the archives have any information about her being there, and all foreign Jews had to register with the police, with the gendarmerie, and there are no records that we have been able to find so far. I'm happy that Renate was not in a camp for those 16 months. Conditions were probably better for her, more supplies, more food. And about June of 1942, conditions became worse, and in July and August, there were many roundups in France of Jews. There was a bit of a competition between French Jews, who were citizens, and foreign Jews, who were not only not citizens, they actually had lost even the citizenship they had of their other countries, such as Renate's from Germany. She was considered stateless. If you recall, in August, the French began cooperating with the Germans and helping to round up the Jews for deportation. The Nazis had quotas, and the French Jews, of course, would prefer that the foreign Jews are the ones to go east to Auschwitz to be deported. And there was a law that beginning on September 15th, all foreign Jews had to be out of France. Foreign Jews were defined as any Jews that had arrived in France after January 1st of 1936. And if you recall, Renate went to Gurs in October of 1940. It was a very strange way they did this. They took all of the Jews to a camp in southern France called Reef Salt. You can see on your map that even though Renate was in the Lyon area, which was not that far south, she was taken from there to Reef Salt with many other people, and then many people went from Reef Salt to Drancy near Paris, which was basically a transport camp, and then from Drancy to Auschwitz. This was a rather strange method, but it was just the way it was done. It took many letters until we finally got a response from the archive that handles the Reef Salt information, and they finally sent us the file card that we could not read. It was just too unclear, too dark. They did include a letter telling us that Renate was in Reef Salt from September 17th until the 21st of 1942. 4 days. And it made sense that if she left the Lyon area on the 15th, that she would arrive there on the 17th. We found no transport lists, and it's possible that she was driven there in a private vehicle, even perhaps a police car. Again, our tech, Alex, was able to clear up the card, the Reef Salt fish, so that we could read it. It has her name and date of birth, and that she is from Germany. Allemande is Germany. On the bottom, I thought that it said Convoy UGIV, and I had no idea what that meant. There's an organization called UGIF, but it didn't look like that. While I was doing a presentation one day, I realized what it said was convoy day of the 21st day of the 9th month of 42. That's what it says. September 21st, 1942, the day of her convoy to leave Reef Salt. The procedure was for people to be transported from Reef Salt or wherever to Drancy in order to be collected and sent to Auschwitz. Renate left Reef Salt on September 21st of 1942, arrived in Drancy on the 23rd, was there only 2 days, and left Drancy on the 25th. Here the convoys were numbered, Convoy 37 to Auschwitz. This information about Drancy was very difficult to locate. It came from the National Archives of France. Towards the end of September of 42, people in France knew that things were pretty bad. When they were transported from Reef Salt to Drancy, they knew the end was near. One of the very sad things was Renate's convoy from Reef Salt left on September 21st of 1942. September 21st that year was Yom Kippur, a day that many Jews, especially observant ones as Renate was, would fast for the day, and they would start fasting at sundown the night before. And remember, there wasn't much food anyway. So they went on this journey fasting on the holy day known as the Day of Atonement, a day to be serious and to ask for forgiveness for any wrongdoing of the past year. Many Jews believe that on Yom Kippur, God decides or finalizes his decision about who will live and who will die during the next year. Emotionally, this was a terrible time for people to be deported and treated in the way that they were. On the left is Renate's file card from Drancy. Basically, it has her name, that she was from Germany, came from Reef Salt, and that she was deported from Drancy on September 25th of 1942. On the right is the telex about Convoy 37. The Germans sent a telex for each convoy, both to the places where it was arriving, stops along the way, to Auschwitz also, and also to Eichmann, who says he knew nothing about it. His name is right on there that he received a copy. You can also see at the top where it says RF, those little lines that look like lightning bolts actually say SS. The Nazis were very proud of their documentation, of their being on time, and this document was given to me by the Center for Jewish Documents that are contemporary. It's CDJC, and I'll try to speak French. Centre de Documentation UV with Jewish Contemporaire. There's another sad anecdote about the timing of this deportation. They were deported they left on the 25th. They arrived in Auschwitz on the 27th at 9 in the morning. So they were traveling on the 25th and 26th. The 25th of September that year was Erev Sukkot. Sukkot is a holiday honoring the harvest of the crops. Erev means the eve of. All Jewish holidays begin sundown the night before, and many Jews will build huts in honor of the harvest, and you can always see the sky through them. So what a terrible time for them to be traveling in a closed cattle car and be unable to see the sky.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divara chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevorach, le'alam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Convoy 37 arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau. Birkenau was about a mile and a half away, but was part of the same camp, and that's where the trains arrived for the selection. It arrived on September 27th at 9:05 a.m. Most of the people on the train were selected to be immediately gassed. We did learn later that Renate was one of the 91 women that were admitted to the camp to work. This information was from her death certificate, which was made public in the mid-1990s. At that time, records that we had thought had been lost for many years were turned over by the Soviet Union to the Polish and German governments. They created death books and turned over death certificates for those people who were admitted to the camp. If one was not admitted, their name was not even recorded, and there was no record of them. Even if the people were not immediately gassed, many of those records did disappear. In 1945, the Nazis realized that this information was damaging to them, and they started to burn the records and burn the gas chambers. They did not succeed in getting rid of all of them. There are 5 volumes of the death books. Renate's page is on the right-hand side. and it shows her last name, Grunebaum, first name, Renate, date of birth, December 8th, 1912, place of birth, Venkheim. She died on October 20th, 1942. When we received a copy of her death certificate, shown on the left, we had a great deal of new information. First of all, we knew that she was not immediately gassed upon arriving, and as she gave her last residence as Saint-Germain-sur-l'Arbrel, we realized where she was, and she also gave her last occupation as farmhand. She was not aware of her father's death. She had left before he died, as she listed him as her father. She knew her mother died because that was in 1932. Renate died about 3 weeks after being admitted to Auschwitz on October 20th, 1942, and her cause of death was listed as heart failure, which was the reason given on many death certificates and was often a code used for shot while trying to escape. I certainly hope that she did try to escape, and from what we've learned about her, it's entirely possible. She certainly was a fighter. We doubt that it was true that she died of a heart attack, because she was only 29 years old.
When you ask me a question about Renate and the boyfriend, it feels me very bad.
I'm sorry.
Because I could have done more to bring her over here. I could have done more.
What could you have done? What could you have done? I don't think you could have done any more.
I could have done more. I can't forget that I didn't do more for my sister. Believe me.
Yeah. Well, I feel bad about that too, Dad, but you know, it's 60 years later, and you did try. It doesn't help to feel bad about it now. You have to go on and do other good things. You did very good things for lots of people in your life. You even lost your finger helping someone.
My finger has nothing to do. That's a job I had.
But you were helping somebody. You always care about helping people. You always work hard and try to help everyone.
Here we have the title page of the death book. Again, there were 5 volumes of the death books, each one about the size of an encyclopedia volume, and the death books were written in 3 languages: German, Polish, and English. Here we have the map again for a review of what happened to our four family members. The map shows the borders for both 1937 and 1942. All of the paths of the four people begin in the center of the map at Venkheim. The green line is Manfred, my dad, and he went to France, to Le Havre, and then to the United States. The blue line is Zerlina, and remember, all three of the people, Zerlina and Samuel and Renate, went to Gurs in 1940. Zerlina, the blue line, went from Gurs north to Drancy and then east to Auschwitz, where she died. The gray line, Samuel, ends at Gurs because he died there. Renate is the yellow line. Renate went from Gurs northeast to the Lyon area and then a bit west to Saint-Germain-sur-l'Arbrel. 16 months later, she went from there south to Rivesaltes near Perpignan, then north to Drancy, east to Auschwitz, where she died. So here we have the legend from the map enlarged, showing the key for the map. And again, Samuel went to Gurs October 22nd, 1940, and died there. Zerlina was in the same transport to Gurs, October 1940, and then on August 10th from Drancy to Auschwitz, where she died. Renate went also to Gurs on the same convoy, then went from Gurs to Saint-Germain near Lyon on May 18th, 1941, then from Saint-Germain, Rivesaltes on September 15th, 1942. On September 21st, she went from Rivesaltes to Drancy. On September 25th, from Drancy to Auschwitz, and she was killed there on October 20th. Notice we say that Renate was killed, that Zerlina was gassed. We say Samuel died in Gurs because we don't think he was killed, but that he died. During one of my presentations, somebody pointed out that as much as Renate did to survive, she only survived about 10 weeks longer than Zerlina. That makes me sad. On the bottom of the chart we have Manfred, my dad. In 1937 he went from Venkheim to Le Havre and then to New York City on the ship the Normandy, and he lives today in Florida. Since I was a child, I've been curious about my dad's sister. My mom was also a Holocaust survivor from Germany, but her family got out and she had 3 siblings, and so I have some cousins. My dad basically had no family. And I really wanted to know about the woman who saved his life. As we worked on this project, I became consumed with it, obsessed with it. I would like to find somebody in that town where Renate lived for 16 months that would remember her. Perhaps someone who was a child at that time and who would now be maybe 70 years old. Remember, we think she lived with a family. We do expect that she was outside of a camp and mixed with the people in this very small community. I'm still hoping to find a photo, perhaps some embroidery that she did, a letter that she wrote. Erwin learned that there was a small newspaper that published locally in the Lyon area, including in the L'Arbrel communities. And so we sent them a letter and some documents such as Renate's Gers card and her death certificate. We had this translated from German, Erwin writes much better than I do, to French and mailed it to this newspaper, Le Progrès. At first there was no response, so I called them and spoke with a woman who said they never had received the information. She asked me to email it to her, and she promised to publish it. I asked her how she could be so sure, and she said to me, "I am the wife of the editor-in-chief." She and I have exchanged some more emails, and I sent her one of those little baby orange trees that she has growing in her yard now. Unfortunately, nobody responded. This is typical. We think perhaps because the French Jews might have been somewhat instrumental in the foreign Jews being deported, and also just because people don't like to talk about the Holocaust. They don't want to remember the bad times. Also, they just really might not remember her, remember what happened. It was a long time ago. The article was in the paper there on May 25th, 2001. There is a Holocaust-focused newsletter in Germany, and we're trying to reach the German community with this. They were kind enough to publish information about Renate in both German and English in their newsletter on more than one occasion, and this newsletter is both published and online. We were basically asking if anybody would have any information either about Renate or about how she might have gotten into a GTE, and if anybody might remember her. There have been a few responses, not about Renate personally, but just people saying, "We do understand, we have similar stories." This is the Fritz Bauer Institute in Germany, in Frankfurt. In April of 1999, I made my second trip to Europe. It was basically all about this Renate project. Oscar Althausen, the man that had given me the correct name and address to get the file card for Renate from Gers, was leading a tour of a group of German people, both Christians and Jews, to several concentration camps, former concentration camps, of course, including the annual memorial at Gers that is held the last Sunday in April every year. We visited several concentration camps, including Gers and Riefsalt. Furthermore, I made my own trip to Auschwitz and met the head historian there, the head archivist, and spent 3 days in the library with him. There were 40 Germans on this bus tour. Several of them, including Oscar, also spoke English, which helped me. Some of them also spoke French, including Oscar, as this tour was all in France, although it started and ended in Germany. One of the women on the tour had been trying to find out information on her aunt most of her life, and I gave her the address that Oscar had given me for Gers, and she wrote me a letter afterwards that the same man that helped me, Claude Lahari, helped her. Her aunt had survived the Holocaust, was in a psychiatric nursing home afterwards, but died in 1972. What a shame that she had not been able to spend some time with her. About 1.5 years later, there was a 60-year anniversary and reunion at Gers of survivors of the 1940 deportation. I was not able to return to Europe again for that, but I created this flyer that summarized Renate's path through the Holocaust and had it translated into German and French and distributed all over Germany, every county, and at Gers, with all the contacts that I had made on my other trip. And as usual, no response. This is not a sad story. My dad met my mom, Greta, also a Holocaust survivor from Nidenstein, Germany, shortly after they both arrived in New York City. They married, had 2 children. Unfortunately, my brother passed away as a young adult from Crohn's disease. But they had good lives. My dad is still alive, and I'm here, and I have a son, so the Grunebaum family was not wiped out by the Nazis. When people see this photo of my son Michael, they all want to fix their daughters up with him. The other photo is my dad with me at his 90th birthday party. Now, when Manfred left Germany, he did not bring any photos with him. The photos that we have of Renate and Samuel are ones that Erwin found from the 1935 photo IDs in Germany. Those photos were a Father's Day gift for my dad in, I believe, 1995.
Tell me what presents you got when you had your bar mitzvah.
Tell me.
What did you get for presents when you had your bar mitzvah? What did people give you for your bar mitzvah?
I forgot. Not much. Not much.
What did Renate give you?
Oh, she gave me the Talis. She put the Talis in on the film. The film I gave to Michael.
Mm-hmm.
The Talis, maybe two, I don't know.
No.
No.
But
the film.
The bag that they came in, you gave to Michael.
So
That Renate made.
Renate made it.
Mm-hmm.
The Talis sack with the film sack. Yeah.
So she could sew pretty well.
Hmm?
She could sew pretty well.
Yeah.
The blessing before wearing the talit. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, lehit atef batzitzit.
What my dad did bring with him when he left Germany was his talit and tefillin, which are religious supplies, and the talit and tefillin bags that were made for him by Renate for his bar mitzvah. They're made of green velvet and his initials are on the talit bag. This is all he has to remember Renate by. And he gave them to Michael, my son, for Michael's bar mitzvah. Renate made them for my dad for his bar mitzvah. When Hurricane Katrina came to New Orleans, which is where Michael lives, and he had to evacuate his home, he took with him his 2 dogs and the talit and tefillin bags. He knew what was important.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam eved. Sim shalom tova uracha chen vaches וצדקה וברכה, ורחמים וחיים ושלום. שים שלום טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך, לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה, ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים שלום טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברוך אתה השם, המברך את עמו ישראל, המברך את עמו ישראל, בשם
I was 9 years old when I fell on a soft ground in Germany, and I was the stronger one, but I fell and broke my arm. My town, they had cows, horses, all the animals, pigs, dogs, everything, but no doctor. So a doctor came from neighborhood town. The name for the town was, I forgot the name of the town, but about 2 miles away. And the doctor was not a specialist, but he put the arm together, and the arm was not set the right way. Where the town was Neubrunn, and I worked very hard as a butcher in the United States, in New York, and I could do the work. It didn't bother me. But later on, about a few years ago, I didn't work anymore, was retired with 65. But only a couple of years ago, my hand, the nerve, the arm didn't work anymore. But now I have to suffer very much. I can't use the arm for nothing. when I put the shirt on, I couldn't reach the bottom, so it's really got me messed up. And I hardly can do anything with that arm, the left arm. And the right arm has arthritis, so has the left arm. So I'm really in a mess.
You're in pretty good shape for a 90-year-old guy. Go ahead.
My name,
German.
My Name ist Manfred Greenbaum. And Susan is my Tochter. She works very hard with me.
Deutsch.
Oh. She works
Arbeit.
Sie arbeitet sehr schwer und sie ist gut zu mir. Ja, sie ist gut zu mir. And,
Louder.
Ja, so viele Jahre bin ich in Amerika und ich habe mein Deutsch vergessen. So, sie ist bei mir, Susan hat heute Geburtstag und wir gehen aus zum Essen.
Und ich hab Hunger.
Hm?
Und ich hab Hunger.
Und Susan hat Hunger. Ich esse nicht mehr so viel. So. Aber ich muss mich besinnen. In Deutsch. Und jedes versteht das.
The next few slides show the very many dedicated, wonderful volunteers who worked with me on this project.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nil Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim Kadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch